Hi YouTube, it's Torp, and I got some spicy content today. Recently, a Mario Kart player named Adam made a tweet where he had 6 theoretical controllers that pretty much give you weird cheats and superpowers. And today, I figured it'd be a good idea to review them. But since a lot of them are really up to a lot of interpretation, I thought it'd be a good idea to get 2 sets of eyes, 2 brains to kind of talk through these, and that is why I brought in Jaggy today, and we're going to go through these for you guys.
What is up? What is up? I find it funny that you bring up cheats because you're referring to Insect, correct?
No one in particular, no.
No, okay, yeah. He shall not be named. Okay, but yeah, I'm very interested to do this. Thank you for having me, Torp.
Yeah, no problem. I'm down to do this. Also, shoutouts to a YouTuber named Toph who did a video just like this for Melee, because somebody made a Melee version of this which used pills instead of controllers, but yeah. Also, worth noting that on the right side of this Twitter page, I have covered up the trending relevant stuff with not only my face cam, but also this picture of the time when the person next to me in high school parked way over the line, and I took a picture and I have never deleted it, even though I really don't need this, but yeah, shoutouts to that person who will remain unnamed.
You should send that to me.
You'll see it eventually. Okay,
yeah, for sure.
Are you looking at the controllers? You ready to go? I think he just disconnected from the call. What just happened?
My bad. I DC'd.
Okay. Are you ready to go? You looking at the controllers?
I am ready to go. I have the controllers pulled up. Let's get right to it.
Okay, let's go across the top row. So I've been thinking a little bit about this one since I wanted to make this video as soon as I saw this tweet, and I think the first controller is kind of nasty. I think it's automatically good.
You know, I would have to agree because, well, here's the thing. Some of these controllers, before we get into it, some of these controllers have, the descriptions are very vague. Like, how often is your power, or like how long does it take until your battery fully drains, right? But if it were to be, an hour plus, I'd say if you go in a war and, the war starts right away, or if the Mogi starts right away without delay, then, all you have to do is just have proper maintenance with the controller and just, after every war, Mogi, just charge it if you're not an addict, of course.
Right, rechargeable batteries would be a lifesaver for this controller because,
yes.
Honestly, the batteries in a Wiimote don't drain that fast. Like, I replace mine like once a week or once every 2 weeks at most. So I think this one's really good. I think the drawback is pretty minimal, especially if you can recharge it. But let's talk about God tier lines. What does that mean? Does that mean like task level?
Of course, it can be close to task level without being task level. But when you say God lines, when I think of God lines, I think of certain tracks. Tracks like RBC and whatnot are pretty easy to drive. Like you practice that a little bit. You'll get the lines. You'll stay in the tight lines around the corners. But when I think of God tier lines, I'm thinking about the difficult tracks to drive. Like your DDRs, your Maple Treeways, your DKMs, the ones that are very bumpy. And then tracks that have certain strats like Waluigi Stadium, in which you do the turn skip.
Right. I was gonna bring that up because lines sometimes doesn't account for like weird track unique strats like that. So
I wouldn't count shortcuts like BC3 Ultra and BC glitch, but I would think the Waluigi turn skip would have to be a strat in which you could have good lines in. Really,
I think a way we could kind of get a basis as to how fast these lines are. I think if we said you can drive as fast as the world record, on command, I think that's a good basis.
You'd have to add a caveat. I think maybe for a couple of the controllers, like maybe you can add cons. Like maybe for the cons here, you just have solid lines, but you're just not good at shortcuts whatsoever. So maybe that could be a caveat with this one.
Right. But just imagine breaking away that far on any track that's hard to drive.
Yeah,
that would be crazy. It's also, yeah, I just feel like this is really good. Like if you're already a decent player, there are some players who would just be far and away the best in the world if they had this controller, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and imagine this on CTs. Oh my god, I haven't even thought about that aspect of it, but. About mostly Reg Mogis, maybe Wars 2. This controller is undoubtedly very good.
I'm certainly gonna rank it up there. We'll see. We'll see how it goes though. Do you want to transition over to the next one?
Yeah, this is the cool green bubble one. I think this
Yeah.
one is dope. This is like the content controller, right? This is your montage making machine right here. But I
Yes.
actually do think it has really good application, especially in wars. Like if you're slagging and your teammates just get up there, like I don't know. It's
The
also
Blues
yeah,
don't even count in that scenario.
right. Like your teammate can hold blue and you can just not be in first, honestly. You can just go for seconds and thirds every race and like every backspam connecting is kind of crazy if you think about it. On tracks where you're getting like, you know, like 5 items per lap, you can hit someone every time. Like that's gonna make your races a lot easier.
Yeah, I looked at this controller and I thought that there are 2 criteria that you have to meet in order for this to be the best. It's very situational with certain tracks, but for one, you know, how many items are there per lap, right? BC this would be disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, because there are 7, 8 different item sets per lap.
Also, like, think about like if you knew your backspam was gonna hit, you could just backspam people off the track, like left and right. That would be unreal. Like,
yeah. You know, on the BC, you could back, you know, a fib or snipe a fib right on the boost panel section.
I
like,
know,
right
yeah, and you
before
just couldn't
the first
miss.
ramp. Yeah.
It would be insane. This would be, and you get so much content. You could chuck bombs like over walls and oh my god, it would be nuts.
And also the coconut mall. Remember that one time where you sniped someone horizontally on that last boost panel ramp?
Wasn't it Spart or was it no, it was Spart was our troller and he saw it happen. I sniped insane in a scrim over the entire parking lot of Coconut Mall.
But you didn't record that.
I didn't record
it,
right? But I screamed in the call. I remember.
Yeah,
that was like the loudest.
It was JJ versus another team. I forget. But
I think it was Clan Volo. That was like a couple years ago. It was a scrim though.
But yeah, this controller honestly would be solid in you know, I'd say maybe 30 to 40% of the tracks if we're talking about Mogi. If in wars, I think it's actually overpowered because you can just stay in a mid spot and back everybody, or you know, have your team pass you in second. You just stay in second and back the hell out of everybody.
And this
in Mogi's though, it's more situational.
Yeah, this might be a whole nother can of worms, but imagine you have one guy on the purple controller and one guy on the green controller.
Oh.
And then he's just gone. He's just off like a rocket, and everyone else is just spinning out the entire race. That'd be unbeatable. But luckily, you can only get one.
Okay.
So we're gonna limit it to that.
Real quick before we switch, I think you know, I'll list a couple tracks that it's really good at. If we're talking about Mogis, let's just have a Mogi lens. I think BC would be a good track. I think BC3 would be a good track.
Yeah, any track just with a lot of turns and
a lot of items, and maybe really short tracks in which you get blued maybe once only or twice only.
I didn't think about
GV2
that. Yeah, GV2.
If you get blued though, right? If you get blued early, it's over. But if you can back everybody and have a huge breakaway, then maybe.
Right, yeah, there's some tracks, this kind of has the same drawbacks as the first controller, where, like, there's so many tracks where this just doesn't really buff you at all. Like, all the luck tracks, where you can catch up from, like, anywhere, you don't really have that much of an advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
Alright, let's move on to the red one. I'm just gonna say, off rip, this is the worst one, by far. This one sucks.
Yeah.
Like, there's people that are already out there making all the shortcuts, and their controllers don't go haywire for 5 seconds. Like, that's such a horrible drawback in a race.
In the top level of play, like in D1, you have to expect, you know, everyone to go for every shortcut in the game imaginable without skipping a beat.
Yeah.
And this could work in lower tiers, but you know,
I don't even know if it would work in, like, 5 seconds is a long-ass time. Like, what's the point in even taking the shortcut if you can't control your vehicle for 5 whole seconds? I think the only good application to this would be like the really hard-ass glitches that people like barely ever make, and you could just do it 3 for 3, and then you would lose 15 seconds during the run because of your controller going haywire. That's like the only application. Somebody just gets the weirdest looking Rainbow Road 3 out of 3, and that's it. That's the only function of this controller.
Yeah, or if you're bagging, maybe you can do the Rainbow Road backwards. And you know, if the other bagger fails it, even if you have a controller going haywire, you're still winning. I don't know. But then if you go for like BCW Hawk, you know, a lot of baggers know how to make that.
Yeah. If you could like turn off the controller, like, you know what I mean? Like only have that happen when you want to, then maybe. But nah, this one This one's
Yeah,
bad.
I would agree.
Speaking of bad, my lighting sucks. My lighting sucks really bad.
Oh yeah, you got your webcam on, dude. We should have done a double webcam.
We
No, if
could.
not, it's okay. It's okay. It's
Maybe
okay.
another time. I don't have that technology yet.
No worries.
Anyway, on to the blue controller. This one is interesting. Very interesting. And people have said some interesting stuff about it.
Depends on the voltage. Like if
Yeah.
if it goes through your body, but you can still control your movements, like you're not paralyzed, then maybe.
Right, it's not gonna, like, physically harm you. I'm thinking, like, you know, shock gum? Like that little prank toy you can buy from the shops where, like, you pull the gum and then it, like, zaps your fingers. I'm thinking, like, one of those. And I think you
Oh
could
yes, just
get
like
really
a
used
quick
to
little
it.
shock. Yeah.
I think if it was, like a rhythmic thing, like, once every 5 seconds you get used to it, but if it was random, that would suck.
Yeah,
Because
no,
then
it
you'd
has
just
to
be
be
sitting
random.
there, you'd just be sitting there in fear that you're
Yeah,
gonna
no.
get shocked. I think this strat would be like you give this controller to the bagger and have them watch everyone's items, and then you just give them gloves or something to reduce the pain.
Yeah, it would have to be random. I think that would have to be the stipulation for this controller. If it's every 5 seconds, you get brace for impact. You know.
Yeah, you would
Um,
really need somebody to be down to take one for the team. Like really.
Yeah.
Like
I think
who's gonna take the shocks to become MW's next bagger who has item spy?
this would be solid for baggers to have, though. It
Yeah,
really would
because
be.
the bagger most of the time doesn't have to like watch the screen that intently, so they can afford to like keep track of who has what items and call things out, and it
Yeah.
could be a really interesting role.
The problem with that, though, is that if you have the shock, oh, okay, this only applies to when the team's about to call the shock. You you have your finger on the trigger ready to go, and then you get shocked randomly, and boom, you use the item button because you get shocked, you get scared.
I hope that
would-
wouldn't
I
happen.
don't know.
But
Yeah.
I do think the item spy would be a really big advantage even without shocks in play, like just knowing who has shrooms, who's holding dodges, if the other team pulls a blue, stuff like that. I mean, the things that item spy is good for.
Yeah, it would help a lot in wars and Mogi's maybe, but I know some players have this innate sense of when the shock's gonna come, like they try to predict when the
Right.
shock's gonna happen. You can kind of tell when somebody pulls shock at times by reading the map. It's not gonna be 100% foolproof, but I think this is a lot more beneficial in wars.
Yeah, true.
We should have two separate rankings, one for Mogi's and one for wars. I think.
We could do that, why not? But I will say about this controller that this is just blatantly cheating. Like the first three, they're just like increased skills, but this one is literally like cheating. So I feel like you'd get banned for using this.
100%.
But it's all hypothetical, so whatever. But I would just feel weird if I had this. I feel like I wouldn't be earning stuff, you know?
Yeah.
That's just me. Okay, and now the yellow controller. The IKEA controller, as it appears.
So this controller doesn't give you any really special powers. It's just, I guess, a boost if if you're scoring. If you're not doing so well, it'll just automatically give you good luck, and then it'll bring you up to 90 points or whatever.
At
But it
least
doesn't-
90, yeah.
Yeah, I
But-
guess it's a way for the Mario Kart gods to to pick you up whenever you're down, but it doesn't give you any powers. It doesn't give you any advantage, and even if you do score that 90 plus, it would honestly have to be 110 plus, because if your partner, it says it doesn't score above 55, but what if he scores 30, 35?
Yeah, true. And it also says teammates. So imagine you're playing a 3v3 or 4v4. That's all of your teammates scoring below 55. That's impossible. And God forbid you play a 6v6 with 5 anchors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds rough. But FFAs, you got those in the bag. So
Mhm.
who knows? I feel like this controller it has a very specific purpose. Like if you want to get a high average, and maybe you want to get recognized by people, be like, hey, this guy's really good, even though he doesn't have the MMR that some other people do because he gets anchored a lot. You might get some publicity from that. So that could be nice long term, but in terms of immediate practicality, this controller is pretty bad.
Okay, I feel like there's got to be at least one person in Lounge that uses this controller, unironically. Do you know anybody that...
Well,
could fit
we can
that
pull
bill?
up the stats real quick. But I mean, who's averaging over 90? Casper, Jeff, Fox, Barney,
Probably-
Sean,
Yeah.
Murabito, Jake, Leops, Asmact. There's not many.
Mhm.
I don't think, yeah, I don't think this controller will help you rise to the top of lounge just based on these stats here. Thinking, like, if you're a low tier player, there's no reason to get this controller because, like,
Yeah.
scoring 90 doesn't mean you're getting better, it just means that you're getting good enough situational luck to automatically gain points. And you're not really gonna be naturally experiencing the game and understanding why you're scoring because it's just literally handing you points. So, yeah, I don't think this controller is good.
Yeah,
This is going to be near the bottom.
It's okay for top tiers, but overall, I mean, it's not that it's very, very situational. Like you said, it's only a controller used in lounge, but you know, overall, it's not the best controller either.
And I think
especially
in
3v3.
Yeah, I think in lounge, FFA gets picked around like 30% of the time across all tiers, but 2v2 gets picked like 60% of the time or something like that. It's crazy. So I think on average, this controller is just not good.
For sure.
Which brings us to the Hello Kitty remote.
Oh my god. I mean...
This one's crazy.
I think Susui could use this.
True. True, oh my god. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, if Susui were to use this controller, he would be, you know, instant diamond at least.
Right, he'd be back to his Season 2 form.
Yes.
Anyway.
This is... Okay, 1 in 5 chance it gets used randomly. In wars, that would be devastating, honestly. Maybe not devastating, but like you can be in a situation in which the other team are in dodges, lap 2, and you pull the shock as a bagger, and then, you know, they all dodge up. But I still think it's worth using as a bagger in wars, and in lounge, it's overpowered. I like this controller overall.
Yeah, we do need to lay out some ground rules as to what it means to pull shock every time you pad. Because I'm thinking like, are you pulling shock every time it's available and you're in a position to get it? Like every time it's in your item roulette, it's gonna get pulled? Because that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think when it says pulled every time you bag, I don't think it refers to like, you know, under 30 seconds or anything.
Yeah. Or it could be like you're guaranteed to get like 1 shock per race, like as a bagger.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that changes things a lot.
We do need to set one particular rule for this. Maximum 2 per race, let's say.
I'm okay with that. I think I'd rather have it be either one. I think every time is just stupid. That would be so dumb.
Yeah. You just use 4 shocks a race.
Yeah, your team is getting a shock every 30 seconds. Like a D5 team would be the best in the world if their bagger had this, even with the 1 in 5 chance. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just maybe add that on the bottom, like put a little text file there. But I still think this would have to be top 3 in both wars and Mogis. I mean, the shock is, you got to think, the shock is the most powerful item in the game, and sometimes it doesn't even matter what your team does in a war. You can be top 3, top 4 going into like a super shock reliant track like MC3 or LC, and it's just over once you pull the shock.
Right. Also, I think in wars in Mogis this is really helpful because you avoid all those situations where you and one other guy are sitting at the boxes waiting for the other guy to go, because you can just pull it in 11th every time.
Yeah, and your teammate, you know, he could bag at first, but then he doesn't have. As soon as he pulls the star, he's like, "All right, now my teammate's gonna get shock. I don't have to worry too much."
Right. Yeah.
Just keep driving and carry this all the way up to like a mid spot.
Knowing in advance that you're gonna pull it is also huge because you can just play around it right from the start. Like you don't even have to like play the game normally. It's just dodging simulator. So I think this controller is nasty. All right.
It is disgusting. I would have to agree.
I think it's time to rank these bad boys.
All right. Let's start off with wars first, even though the yellow IKEA controller probably doesn't apply, but we'll just say that
one doesn't count.
You score 90 plus and all of your other teammates score below 50. That would be terrible.
I think the red one is just going to be last in both categories. I don't see a way that beats any of these other ones.
Agreed.
Like, that's barely, like, there are people that are pretty much making every shortcut, and the haywire part just completely ruins the advantage of the controller. It does look pretty nice, though.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. It looks clean.
For the top left one, the guard tier lines, in wars, I feel as if you're in a low tier team, low div, you can be a carry, but in MKPS, where, you know, the top teams will certainly win, I do think this would favor you more so in, I guess, well, I shouldn't say it favors people more in the top tiers because, you know, a lot of players have good lines anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, never mind. I do think this would favor you in lower divs, but I mean, the lower div teams don't really have that much, you know, glory anyway in the MKPS scene.
That's true.
So let's just, you know, look at it objectively. I think this would be probably at least number 2 in wars.
I might put this third, just like with our stipulations being you drive as fast as the world record. For the reasons you said, like a good player can outplay a fast player, essentially. Except for some tracks like where the guy is just going to break away no matter what, if you give him an inch, and that's kind of hard to prevent. Especially if that guy's hosting, like that becomes a real problem. And I think a good example of what you were talking about in like low tiers is AP Beat, who's actually he's playing for SG, I think.
Yeah.
But he's scoring like 140 in every match, and like he's in like D5 or D4, which is just crazy. He just runs circles around those kids. Yeah. So I think you're right that for low tiers, I think this is really, really good. It's not going to make you a good player automatically, but on some tracks it is very, very powerful.
Yeah, I think let's see. Let's start off with what we think is going to be number 1 here. I think what's going to be number 1 here in wars would most certainly, okay, as a runner, I'd say the every snipe and backspam.
I was thinking the same thing. I think that's just
as a bagger, the item spy, 100%. You can't really backspam people as a bagger, but
you'd rather have item spy than pulling shock every time.
Actually, I don't know. Yeah, I know, pulling shock every time. I think that'd have to be
yeah, I think so. Because if you have shock, then you don't need item spy as much, right? Like you don't need to worry about the other team dodging their players. You know, you can use your shock to cancel blues, even if you don't know that they're coming. Like the Hello Kitty controller is busted for baggers. I think that's a no-brainer. But for runners, I do agree. I think the green one's best. I think just the impact you can have on a race, like if you think about like the way like, you know, Mario Kart, it's about finishing the race before your opponents, right? Finishing with a lower ending time. And if you backspam someone with like 2 fibs, that's about the same amount of time loss as you would gain by dodging in some situations. Yeah. So like,
and also assuming that only one person can use a controller at a time in wars, not everybody can use it at once.
Right.
The permanent item spy thing can be helpful, but at the same time, it can really clash with the chemistry, and you know, because a lot of times in calls, people keep it simple, right? But then when you have to look at, or when you have the ability to look at everyone's items, it can be a little conflicting. Like, oh, this person has this item, this item, this item. I mean, you go into like a in-depth explanation as everyone's trying to call things out.
Right. You would need you would need an absolute mastermind with the blue controller for it to really be used to its full potential. Otherwise, it would just be a mess of calling out items over and over again. And if your other players don't know what to do with that information, then it's not going to get you anywhere. So, blue controller might have a high like skill ceiling, but it's not that good.
Not in wars, assuming that only one person has it, you know, at a time. If everyone has it, you know, they don't even have to call out. They just know. They just do, you know, they call out the backspams and whatnot, but then they have that intricate knowledge of who has what. So I'd say, you know, number 1's going to be the pink controller. Number 2 is going to be every snipe and backspam. Number 3 would have to be let's just assume that, you know, only one person has any of these controllers.
Right, yeah, time. Just one player. Well, let's assume it's you. Let's assume you are the player. Which one would you want?
Okay, so number 1 is pink. Number 2 is the every snipe and backspam connects. Number 3 would have to be the... I'd still say the permanent item spy, number 3, even though it can be conflicting. I feel like, you know, myself, I know I'm confident in my comms, not to conflict with call too much, but it depends on the person. For me, number 3 is the item spy. Number 4, God tier lines. Number 5 is the top right.
The shitty red one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would take the backspam and snipe one. It's free content. You get to expose people all the time, do ridiculous stuff. It'll just work. It would definitely frustrate people to get sniped and backspammed over and over again. And you wouldn't have to worry about randomly using the shock on accident. And the part about being blued, you can just, as long as you know that it's a factor, you can kind of just avoid that. And as long as you can hit enough people to get your teammate into first, that you don't have to worry about that. Assuming it's only you getting blued more often and not your team.
Right.
Is the
and
stipulation
if you have your
teammate
in second, then you could just let him pass. You can back everybody. If you are in first with 2, 3, 4, 5 behind you, that could be a problem though. Excuse me, there's a tsunami siren going in the background. Happens every Friday at noon.
Wow. I heard something. I thought it was like a ringtone.
Yeah.
It didn't sound very threatening to me.
Yeah, I live by the beach, so it happens every Friday.
So my official ranking is going to be the green one, and then the pink one. And I'm going to put God tier lines probably third, just for the rare cases where it's like a really, really hard track to drive perfectly, and you're like starting in first. And as long as you have rechargeable batteries, or you're just very attentive to your battery levels, that's not going to be an issue. And then Item Spy fourth, and then a huge gap between that one and the red one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The red one's, yeah, the red one just sucks.
Yeah, I just think that, with the shock that the power possesses, I think that the one on the bottom right, even with that 1 in 5 chance getting used randomly stipulation, I still think that it's worth it.
Interesting.
In my opinion. Yeah, so let's move on to the Mogi Lounge rankings. So what do you got? I'll think about it a little bit more because I'm still up in the air.
I think the green one's just still the best. I don't know. Yeah, but maybe the pink one.
But in lounge though, in lounge you have a lot less freedom to work around the blue. That's the thing.
Right. Yeah, and you're still gonna get hit just as often, right? Like you can still get redded and sniped and run into stuff, but you're kind of like, I feel like the pink one like kind of guarantees a certain degree of success just because you're gonna get shock every race, and that's like if you understand what to do with shock, you're not gonna get losing music most of the time.
100%. Yeah, I mean there are certain tracks like RBC. Well, maybe not RBC because everyone gets hit around the tight corners, but there are certain tracks in which you fall behind when you're holding onto the shock. But if you know what you're doing, and if you can use the shock at an ideal time and not dodge too many people and benefit yourself, I mean that's going to be a really good item to have in lounge. I'm going to have that as my number 1 for lounge as well.
And worst case scenario with the pink controller is that you spam a shock at 30 seconds and then you just play the race normally from that point on. So
and then you drop later on.
And that's still that's still fine.
Well, what if the problem may lie when you pull it lap 3, but even when you pull it lap 3, the race is almost ending, right? And the shock as a whole is still a powerful item.
Yeah, it's gonna help you. It's gonna help you no matter what.
Yeah.
So.
And I can see it being an issue with dodging the other team or something along those lines, but this is 100% a number 1 for me in lounge. In wars, I still have it as number 1, but it's a little bit more fringe.
I still think the green one is sick, but logically the pink one might just be a tiny bit better. And then I think in lounge I would still keep the blue one third, because you don't really have to worry about a lot of the items that are happening. Like a lot of them are just not going to be that relevant. Whereas in wars, like you might have multiple 1v1s happening. You might have to worry about individual players, but in Mogis you can kind of ignore that for the most part. So I still think did I say blue? I meant the purple one. The God Tier Lions one is third.
Oh, okay. And we completely forgot about the con for the Item Spy one, the electric shocks, right? You were mentioning something earlier about how this, if it happens randomly, you're kind of just stuck in fear.
Yeah, you're just in your own head. That's like actual torture. Like that's not cool at all.
I remember when I used to play lounge back in like 2018, 2017. Even worse too. Like my controller would DC every now and again. I used to have major controller problems back then. And my driving would be noticeably worse because like I don't want to shake my controller too hard, otherwise it's going to DC. And yeah, it's overall that stipulation is not very good. I would have said number 2 in lounge for this one, but that stipulation kind of makes me demote it to a 3. And for number 2, I'm gonna say God Tier Lines number 2 for lounge.
Really?
Yes, because some of the top players in lounge, like your obviously Casper has really good item theory and item usage, but a good chunk of your top players in lounge, 90 to 95% of them will have at least close to God Tier lines. And I feel like even though lounge is a lot of it is item usage and reading of the map and reading of the shocks and whatnot, I really think that lines will separate the men from the boys in that respect. In wars, you can have other drivers that will have good lines, but lounge it's just yourself and FFAs and maybe a partner if it's a 2v2. That's 95% of the formats.
I am now thinking that with the Lions controller, like, does that mean that like you're never gonna fail your strats? Like, because that can be a big deal. Like a lot of the times the reason why people lose races is because they're in a good spot and then they mess something up. Yeah. And I think with the purple controller, like you're not gonna like mess up stuff because you're nervous. You're not just gonna randomly fail hard things. Like you're gonna be hitting your strats as fast as possible every time, and that can go a long way.
Yeah, like I said, I think the stipulation that we have to have for this one, another stipulation. I think, what was the stipulation we had? I forget. But yeah, it's that you
drive as fast as the world record. You drive as fast as the world record.
But then you're not good. Okay, let's just say that you can't take the shortcuts very consistently. That's one of them. Because like, if you can have this and you're a really good shortcut taker, you're gonna get, you know, plat in lounge, or not plat. I'm sorry, grandmaster in lounge immediately. So let's just say that the stipulation here is that you can't take shortcuts consistently. I still think it's a number 2, because you know, in overall in certain tracks like DDR. You know, Waluigi Stadium, BC Wii, even though you don't take the glitch, if you're in first and you take, you know, you hit your marks, then it's really solid.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then, let's see, number 4 I said was the shock one, or the one that gives you shocks, and then I think, between these last two, these ones are just pathetic, dude. I think the yellow one is good as long as you just get some homies who are down to spam FFA all the time. Yeah. But unfortunately, that's just not how the world works, so it's gotta be 5th.
And you know, the red control, there are only, you know, 3 tracks that come to mind, 3 or 4 tracks that come to mind in which you take shortcuts that, you know, cut off 6, 7, 8 seconds rather than, you know, 2 or 3.
Yeah, like
yeah. I would have to say my number 3, I never got into that. My number 3 would have to be the actually, I don't know. The permanent item spy for number 3.
I think you're underrating every snipe and backspam connecting.
I know, but in lounge, you know, I don't know. You get blued 3 times more often. I'm not sure. It could fit in certain tracks like you know, BCW, where there's a lot of item boxes, like I said, or like a really short track, but I just don't think it's nearly as potent in lounge, because if you get blued anyway, what's the point? But if you're if you stay in second though, that is gonna be, you know,
you have to play it really well.
Yeah.
Like, you'd have to change your playstyle a lot to accommodate for this controller, but I think if you figure that out, then it could be really good. Whereas with the purple one is just like everything you do is automatically better because you're now just a speed lord.
I'll upgrade to a 3, and the number 4 will be the item spy one.
Okay, that's fine with me. And then yeah, the red one's just last. I think it's really hard to argue anything else for the poor red one. But it does look cool. It's also like a third-party GameCube controller, so it's got a little bit of swag. The only use for the red one is just making the shortcuts and glitches that no one else can do and getting weird-looking world records. Like, imagine Rainbow Road, like, you make the one shroom cut and then you're just stuck in the fence for 5 seconds.
Right.
Yeah. That would be something else. Alright, anyway guys, if you liked this video, feel free to rank these controllers for yourself in the comments. I had a lot of fun doing this. I hope you did as well, Jaggy.
Me too. I thought I had like a good idea of what I was going to rank each controller before I went into this, but after we, you know, discussed it for a little while, I kind of changed my mind a little bit on a couple of them.
Yeah, I think having 2 perspectives definitely helped for this. Shoutouts to Adam again. His Twitter's right there, right? I can't point to it because my camera's down here, but you get the idea. His Twitter's right there. Follow him if you want. Like the tweet if you want. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, commenting, subscribing, all that stuff. Go follow Jaggy on his Jaggy stuff. Links in the description. And that's going to be it. Goodbye, everyone.
Peace.